Alright, sumo deadlift, baby. This is how all the cool kids... This is how the cool kids pull. Hello everyone, it is me from the future, which I guess is still technically the past as you're watching this, but anyway. As some of y'all might know, I originally recorded the conventional and sumo portions of this video with the intent of just putting it out in one video, but as I was editing it, I just realized that it would have been way too long. So this second half, the sumo portion, does not have a formal intro. It has my typical like goofy like informal intro, but not a formal intro addressing y'all. So today we will be breaking down the sumo deadlift. We will be talking about back angle, grip width, stance width, and 2 different ways to initiate the pull. So if you find that you have a hard time off the floor, you'll want to look into timestamps for when we talk about that. We'll also be talking about how to figure out which stance you are better suited for, conventional or sumo. And then I briefly break down how I like to deadlift. I am a sumo puller, obviously, because we are talking about the sumo deadlift in this video. Let's do it. I'm gonna teach you how to cheat in the deadlift. Let's do it. I hope y'all are as ready as milkshakes. You want your shoulders to be behind the bar. You want most of your weight to be behind the bar because we are acting like a jack and we are trying to force that weight up in a straight, mostly straight up and down bar path. So this is where stance width and grip width comes more into play. The problem with too narrow of a grip is what that does is that kind of jams your back at the top, and if your grip is too narrow, it will be impossible to kind of uncurl your back. Too wide of a grip, again, you're just kind of adding some range of motion to the lift. Sumo deadlift, we're trying to cut that out. Grip width in the sumo may be dependent on your legs in the sense of you kind of want to decide where you're comfortable with your hands falling. Some people be finishing like with their hands by their knees. But yeah, you just kind of want to decide where you're most comfortable with your hands landing. You don't want to get your hands too caught up on your thighs. And stance width. So you can't really see my legs a lot here, but again, I should have videos up somewhere around here for y'all to watch. But so stance width, if you're just starting sumo, you kind of want to start a little bit more narrow, pretty much unless you're just coming out the gate with a good amount of flexibility and strong adductors and quads. You are going to find that the wider stance is uncomfortable. You're also going to find that you may not be able to get as upright as you would like. So basically my recommendation is to just start your stance a little bit narrow and just work it out, slowly work it out across blocks. I recommend no shorter really than a 6-week block, and maybe just take 2 blocks with that stance, move it out a little bit, take a couple more blocks with that stance, and just keep moving it out and working with it until it's somewhere that's comfortable. Ideally, how you'll find the stance width that works most perfectly for you, you'll want to look at your shins. So I don't really like lifting facing the mirror. So this will be where you might want to just watch yourself in the mirror or just record yourself from the front. Look and see where your shins are. Ideally, you do not want them so wide that they're kind of at an angle like this. I'm like watching myself in a mirror. You don't want them so wide that they're not straight up and down, they're more pointing up towards you. You also don't want your stance so close that your shins are kind of pointing outwards. So again, like the proper stance width will just ensure that you're pulling what's most optimally for your leverages. This kind of goes right into back angle. So everyone wants that super upright angle Everyone wants that Yuri Belkin, that Steffi Cohen back angle. We're just not built like them, guys. But ideally, the sumo, you should be more upright than how you pull conventional. And what I'll see a lot is when people pull sumo, they still kind of have this very like bent over, very hingy starting position. And what they're doing is they're missing out on a lot of the benefits of the sumo deadlift. Accentuation of the quads, the decreased force on your low back, just the amount of force you can generate with your legs. They're kind of using their lower back and their hamstrings more when they pull that way. And on top of it, I'll probably put it up here on the screen, but if you saw my deadlift attempts from my last video, you'll see that when you kind of pull with this more bent over position, you're kind of having to kind of get out of your own way in order to pull the bar. You're kind of making more work for yourself, and you're eliminating another wonderful thing about the sumo deadlift, which is the straight bar path. And this can be one of two things. It can be a leverage issue or a flexibility issue. The leverage issue, really not much we can do about that. That's just how you're built. But flexibility, again, kind of starting your stance a little bit closer and building up the flexibility and the muscles in that position so that you can have a more upright starting position. I'll try to dig up a few old videos, but one of the reasons why I had such a close starting position in the sumo is because that way I was able to achieve a more upright torso. But once I was very comfortable in that position, I just moved it out about an inch each side, and you'll see my back is still fairly upright even now that I've moved my stance out. Now, is it perfectly upright? No, but I would say for someone like me who's not super flexible, not super well built for the sumo, I think that's pretty ideal. One other reason why you might see people pulling sumo with a little bit more of a bent over torso is they may just be pulling sumo because they've injured their back in the past, or conventional just bothers their back, and they find just popping their legs outside of their arms and just pulling with a wider stance and pulling this way just decreases the pain in their low back. If that's how you prefer to pull, then that's totally fine. Just know that you're not really taking full advantage of the sumo. Finally, the setup. This is actually so important. As one, it kind of brings everything that we talked about together. Your grip width, stance width, your back angle, and your hip height. And it allows you to implement all of those things, bring them all together, and that's how you get into position, and that's how you initiate the lift. There are two different ways to initiate the deadlift, but I would say this is way more of a factor in sumo. This can make or break sumo for a lot of people. There are two different ways to set up and two different ways to initiate the pull. One is a top-down setup. This is you kind of setting your back and then your legs, grabbing the bar and then pulling. And then the other way is a bottom-up setup. This is reaching down, grabbing the bar, setting your legs, and then setting your torso and then lifting the bar up. And then there is the dynamic start, and then maybe like a slow start, almost like an isometric start. The dynamic start goes well with the bottom-up setup. It is what I have. That's a Jamal Browner. That's a Caller Woolham. Caller? I think that's right. Where you're just grabbing the bar and then really quickly getting your body into place and using that energy produced from getting your body into position to pull the slack out of the bar and ideally break the bar off the floor. And then you're just using the rest of what you know about how to deadlift to get the bar up. That's another thing. Sumo, ideally, when performed correctly, is literally just get the bar off the floor, hips to bar, ideally. That should be your two main concerns throughout the lift. New people will watch the way Caller sets up and they think that he is just yanking on the bar and then locking it out. That is not the case. When doing a dynamic start, you are utilizing the potential energy created by your setup, and then the only muscle you should be using is your lats to kind of break the bar off the floor, and then again, it's just hips to bar from there. I cannot stress this enough. You are not yanking, you are not initiating the lift with your arms. Your arms should just hang, and they should just kind of be like very tight rope or like very tight wire with hooks attached to the bar. And you should be using your body to get the weight off the floor. I stress this because I see people yank the bar off the ground every dang day. Whew, sorry about that. So, using the momentum from your body, setting it into place, that will pull the slack out of the bar, using your lats to break it from the floor, and then driving your hips into the bar. The gradual start or the slower start to the sumo is very cerebral. Here you need to be very locked in mentally, and you need to be thinking of all of the proper cues and everything you need to create the tension in your muscles, to create the force and really drive with your legs. And most importantly, you must not lose patience off the floor. This is a Steffi Cohen prime example. This is a Meg squats, very slow off the floor, driving with your legs, breaking the bar with your lats, pushing with your legs until it finally budges, and then again, hips to bar. So regardless, with the sumo, regardless of your setup and how you initiate the movement, hips to bar all day. That brings me to my second to last talking point. How do you know what you're built better for? First of all, best way to find out is by doing them. But one thing you can do is you can measure your leverages to kind of try to figure out what you might be built best for, conventional or sumo. And I'll try to find the little chart and put it up here, and you can pause the video and just kind of look and measure and see, or you can finish the video and come back to this point. Again, timestamps will be in the description. But one thing I've been finding a lot lately is a lot of people try to eyeball their leverages, and this really isn't the best way to go about it, because yeah, it might look like you have a long torso, but measured up against the rest of your body, it may just be, average. I might look like I have pretty short femurs, but in comparison to my torso, which also starts here, it does not start here, it's this. They're about even. And that's another thing, because clothing can be very deceptive. Also, things that are fatter look shorter. But so again, illusion. So say if you have really like big meaty biceps, triceps, it may make your arms look shorter than they actually are. So just measure them. Now, this is not a perfect science. This is not an end all be all. If you find it says you're built more for one or the other, what really matters is how they feel. So again, I would dedicate specific blocks to either stance and finding which works better for you and which is more comfortable. There are also some charts that say that a longer torso is not more favorable for the sumo, and I disagree with that, and that's why this is not a perfect science. But when you really think about it, if you're popping your legs out and you have a short torso, that's more you're going to have to reach your hips back and push your knees out in order to reach down for the bar. So again, this may just be kind of more relative to your arm length. So again, just work with your stance and find what is right for you where you are. That is the second best way to find your ideal starting position. The first way, like I said, is just doing the exercise. Maybe during your warm-ups or whenever. Pull how you're gonna pull, start however. And again, this is a very old tip. I definitely did not come up with this, but then just slowly set the weight down and just let the weight bring you down and let your body fall wherever it's gonna fall. And I would record and I would take screenshots, especially once you've completely set the bar down, and you will be able to see kind of where your body gravitates towards naturally. And I would do a few reps like that, lifting it up, slowly setting it down, rest, and then try not to move at all and just pick it up. So you want to do this super slow. So again, probably during your warm-ups or with no more than 50%. How I deadlift, very dynamic start, bottom up. I prefer to have my hands shoulder width, maybe a little bit inside. That's just where I feel most powerful, most locked in from the top. Set my feet. My shins are normally about within an inch from the closest ring. You know, some bars have 2 rings towards the end. Mine is usually within the one on the inside. What's really trippy when you really think about it is my sumo stance is closer than my bench grip. I didn't really talk about foot angle just because that will kind of vary, but ideally you want it going in the same direction as your knees. The more forward of a toe angle in the sumo, the more flexibility that will require from your hips, unless you just have a pretty close angle and your knees just aren't pointed out very much. So shins 1 inch inside of the rings, hands out in front. I just reach down, grab the bar. Usually I will only have like my pinky and ring finger on the knurling on this side. My index finger and my thumb and maybe my middle finger will be on the knurling on this side. So I actually have half of my hand on the smooth. That's about how narrow my grip is. So I just reach down, grab, shoot knees out, chest up, and what that does is that breaks the bar off the floor, and then it's hips to bar. I like to think about pushing my chest into the bar. That helps me get my lats into position and helps me break the bar off the floor. But so that's the different starting positions in the deadlift. That is how to find what your ideal starting position might be, whether it's in application or through measurement. And then we talked a little bit about how I like to deadlift and some of my favorite deadlift cues. If I missed any, hopefully they were up on the screen. Thank y'all so much for your support on my channel, keeping me off the mean streets. I'll see you guys in that next one. Have a great day.